going on, everybody? Welcome to the Resistance broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode where we are going to do a segment that is very popular on the show. It only happens 4 times a year, and that is the State of Star Wars Fall 2024 edition. And we are going to talk about our thoughts on the current state of our favorite movie franchise, right on the heels of a brand new live-action Star Wars show coming our way. So, I'm John. Lacey is here, and we
Hi, guys.
are ready to roll. Lacey, we have a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to get right after it real quick here. A couple things off the top, because, like I said, loaded show. Skeleton Crew, the homeworld, is being called a crown jewel of the Old Republic. And John Watts went further to say there's definitely more to the planet than meets the eye. Yes, I made a Transformers joke today about that. But but he said we don't want to say too much. And then that came via Screen Rant. So one of the more interesting things that come out about this show, I think my mind, probably your mind, a lot of fans' minds, is this is post Return of the Jedi. This is Mando timeline era. And all of a sudden you hear Old Republic and you're like, whoa, well, that can open up so many possibilities. So were you as surprised when you heard that that report or that reveal?
Definitely, because like you just said, the Mandalorian Mandoverse stuff has kind of set the tone of where this is. And we all just assumed like, oh, they're going to reference probably original trilogy a little here, maybe some Rogue One, nothing too crazy, maybe a couple prequel things, but like Old Republic, that's going back. And it's interesting because I think Star Wars, as usual, is always dancing around what's canon and what's not. So I'm interested to see like what that means. Are they going to be pulling from the EU at all? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's an area that fans have been dying to have explored in canon, and to hear it come up in something that's taken place closest to, the sequel trilogy, which is the last mark in the timeline in terms of going forward, is a little surprising, but leaves a lot to wonder about this adventure that we're all about to go on with Skeleton Crew.
I can't. I'm so excited. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just so excited for this adventure. I think it's just kind of, I feel like it's going to be the thing that I've been missing, which is a fun, just enjoy the ride type story. Like there's nothing crazy dark about it, or like it isn't connecting to some deeper meaning of the Force. I'm ready to just have some fun. And it seems like it's a pirate thing. I'm all in.
Yeah. What's cool about it is, this is that planet the kids are from. And, even just watching the trailers, you're like, this looks like suburbia. This looks like it's out of E.T. or something.
Yeah.
And then to hear that this planet is actually this coveted, just relic of the past, and the way past, allows maybe the story to tell this linear adventure with these kids, but also offers something that adds some weight to another era entirely in Star Wars. So it's just it spun a bunch of marbles of thoughts in my head, and I'm very curious as to where they land that idea in terms of its ties to the Old Republic. But so we have that. We're obviously starting Galactic Goonies on December 4th, where we're going to dive into the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew. So no guest per usual when we do these shows. No guest, just me and Lacey for the first round. And then the following week to talk about episode 3, we can confirm our first guests. And I think a lot of people will be happy because we have a returning guest. And it's not just one guest. It's Alex and Mac from Children of the Watch coming back to hang out with us to talk about episode 3 of Skeleton Crew on December 11th. So they're going to become Galactic Goonies with us, and things might get bananas again. We're not sure. But Lacey, the other thing at the top here, I know you're going to be pumped about this. You probably already are because you read this, but Visions, as we probably expected, renewed season 3 coming next year. Quick thoughts.
I am so hyped. I out loud was like, yes, when I saw the announcement. And it was like a very weird time too, Did it come out in the middle of the night for us on the East Coast? Because
It
I
was
was like, when
12:30. Yeah. It was,
I was like, where did this come from? I woke up to the news. I am just so excited. I loved volume 1 and volume 2. You guys know I did the like every episode review type videos. I'll probably do those again where I go through what I liked and what I didn't like. Huge anime fan here, so it's right up my alley. And I just love how it doesn't have the pressures of canon, which we've discussed a lot. So they're allowed to do these like crazy wild things that are just fun. They're just like out
yeah.
and creative.
It's yeah, it's yeah, I've always thought that way about Visions. It's just, there's not even the pressure of canon. It's like fans can just like take a breather and be like, this isn't the serious implication on what's going to happen. It's just they can tell any story they want and it doesn't matter. And that freedom has to be pretty cool for the creators.
Mhm.
And also it's clearly an effort for them to try to expand their international audience, and hopefully that's working, especially as we're heading to Japan for Celebration in April.
Oh my gosh, so
I'm
crazy.
expecting to see maybe even some cosplay based on Visions and a lot of really cool stuff that we
Yeah.
don't typically see stateside. So really excited to see what they bring to the table, because I thought Volume 2 was unique in its own way. It had some darkness, a decent amount of darkness. So they balance that out with the fun light stuff and some of the like really heavy stuff. But ultimately, you walk out of that and you're like, doesn't impact the precious canon, like you said. And it's beautifully animated and nicely told stories. So Visions, yeah, coming back, very cool. I know a lot of people are pumped about that. We're pumped about something else.
Can I say
Because
something really quick before you get into that? Because I know what it is. Uh, we're streaming right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And I do want to give a shout out to Ashby Paul 64, who said, "Hey guys, first time watching live from New Zealand.
yeah,
Hi. Nice to see you. I just want to
what
make
time is
sure
it
that
there?
I don't know. Uh, I watch all the streams, guys. I don't know how I do it, but I do. So I see your comments and I appreciate it. So thank you. Just wanted to give you a hello.
It's 2:40 p.m.
Oh,
in New
nice
Zealand,
afternoon. Have a
right in the
nice,
middle of a Friday work day, almost at the end.
yeah.
I
Enjoy
don't
the
know
workday.
well, do they work in New Zealand? I just feel like when I think of New Zealand, I feel like it's just this happy island of complete
I
peace
mean,
and
they do
fresh
seem
air.
very
And
happy, but
yeah,
he said
but thank you.
afternoon. I'm at work.
There you go. So they
Don't
do
tell
work.
anyone. Shh,
Confirmed.
shh,
They
shh,
work in New Zealand.
shh.
Confirmed. Well, everyone except Taika Waititi on Star Wars, apparently. But we'll talk about that another time.
Oh, ooh, ooh. Or maybe
Uh,
later. Star
no,
Wars, State of Star Wars.
yeah, no, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's obviously, if you're watching live or if you're listening on your favorite podcast app. Uh, we are doing resistance transmissions later in the show. No Ask the Resistance, but if we have time and you happen to pop any questions in the chat, maybe we'll try to sneak them in if that topic comes to mind.
Mhm.
But yeah, just sit back, relax, have a good time, enjoy the show, and we appreciate it. But before we get into the Resistance Report, which is going to be a very different Resistance Report, very cool Resistance Report,
Mhm.
we have an announcement to make, and I'm going to hand it over to Lacey to make the reveal.
I am? You're giving me this opportunity? Okay, my hands are immediately sweating. Guys, I am so excited to talk about this. It's something that John and I have been working on for months, very late at night outside of work and family and podcast stuff and just like finding time here and there to work on it. But we have launched a brand new website, which we're really excited about because outside of just posting our content there and giving updates and eventually doing other things, which are not ready yet, we do have new merch. So head over to trbpodcast.com. We have new merch specifically for Galactic Goonies. We have TRB stuff with our new TRB logo that we did recently. And then nerdy and nice cool stuff like this pocket tee, which I love, which is on the screen for those that are audio listeners. So yeah, trbpodcast.com. You can find stuff for Christmas and or if you just feel like it, treat yourself, self-care. Love it. John, what do you have to say about it? Are you pumped?
Yeah, because it's something I know we've wanted for a long time. We weren't really 100% happy with the options that we had at the time for merch. And I'm not going to call out the sites or anything like that, but we were never ever 100% happy and never got what we were looking to get out of this stuff, and now we're getting
Mhm.
as close as possible. So I'm very excited to see when I get, the shirts I order and try them on, and it's always that fresh, cool feeling to see something you created, and seeing people at celebrations wearing TRB shirts or whatever. It's just like, it's such a great feeling, and getting that support from people. But ultimately, this is step one of many steps, whether it's this website or other things that we have planned for the next year. So it is exciting because you have something to work toward and look forward to. And with all the Star Wars that's coming down the road, I feel like we're sort of saying goodbye to one era, and it just feels like there's something in the air with Star Wars, like we're entering a new era, and we're doing our version of that for TRB, if that makes sense at all. But I am very excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it because there's just so many opportunities with this new website out of what we've done before and new experiences that we can provide to you guys, and ways to connect with us and new content and stuff like that. But I'm just really pumped for merch. I know people have been asking for a while for it and new stuff, and we have so many plans already. There's stuff that I've designed and items and collections we have in mind that aren't up yet because we want to space it out. We don't want to hit you guys with like 40 items at once.
Mhm.
So don't worry, we're gonna have new stuff all the time rotating in and out. Galactic Goonies is a limited edition collection, so make sure if you want that stuff you get it now because it's gonna go away once I almost called it Galactic Goonies, but Skeleton Crew is over. And then just stay tuned for more stuff. We're gonna have stuff on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and also specials just for Patreon only. So if you're interested, patreon.com/TRB podcasts. You support the community there. You get lots of different perks, including eventually opportunities at exclusive merchandise, which is really cool. But yeah, a lot of work went into it. So let me know what you guys think. We're always open to feedback and what you'd like to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you to everybody who's already bought some stuff. I know people in
Yeah,
our Patreon, our Discord, sent like their receipts, like screenshots, their receipts. It's just so cool. I
it
mean,
means a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
I cried when I
So
finished
cool.
this website.
Yeah. Yeah, you did
Happiness.
yeah.
Happiness. I was like so proud of myself because like it just was a lot of work. So
Yeah, you did a great
yeah,
job. Put a lot of
thank you.
time in, and I'm glad people are enjoying it so far already.
Mhm,
So very cool.
mhm.
All right. I know we have a couple of super chats to get into, and then we'll get into the resistance report.
Yes. So first we have David Ford. Thank you so much for the super chat. Said, I am so thankful that we have Andor season 2 coming soon. I think some other show is coming up as well. Hopefully, at least it's as good as Star Trek. Wah, wah. All right, David.
Thank you, David.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
jeez. And
Thank
of course, it wouldn't be a show without Freezy2324. What up, man? He said, TRB. I'm officially going to Celebration Japan. Hope to see you there. So hype. Uh,
Crazy.
we are so hyped to go. I've been planning. We're talking about the website. Like, I plan everything. I'm a planner and I have an Excel sheet. I'm so excited. John's like, we got time, Lacey. It's okay. And I'm like, okay, but we have to decide these things. He's like, I'm not going to decide what I'm eating for lunch right now, so we can hold off.
I don't
But
know what I'm
we're
having for lunch
so
tomorrow.
I
So
know we're so excited to see you, Freezy, and everybody else. We're
thank you.
currently in the process of applying for panels and stuff, so hopefully that comes through. But yeah, we're super excited. And Darth Snips, what up, girl? She said, Heart the merch made it through the bomb cyclone here in Pacific Northwest. What is that? No power, no heat, but thankful for TRB to warm me up tonight. Oh my gosh, be safe.
Is that a
Jeez
real thing?
Louise. I'm so sorry. I don't know what the bomb cyclone is. It sounds terrible, but hopefully I'm glad you're safe enough to be commenting. Thank
Yeah.
you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Hope
Please.
everyone's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Doorsteps.
All
Um,
right.
all right. Let's get after it. Let's do it. Let's get into the resistance report.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about what I did. Let's see what John's been up to.
It's the resistance.
Thank you, Harrison. So, yes, we got a chance to speak with John Watts and Chris Ford, the writers and creators of Skeleton Crew, and the Skeleton Crew themselves, Ravi, Robert, Ryan, and Kiriana. So yeah, we took part in 2 roundtables, and both full interviews are available on our channel, youtube.com/@TRBpodcasts, and each are on our podcast feed as well. So if you haven't had a chance to check those out, they're about 15 or so minutes each. A lot of great questions. We were joined on that panel alongside Star Wars Explained, Alex from Star Wars Explained, Sky Talkers, and Father Son Galaxy. And I got a chance to ask a handful of questions to the collective. So what we're going to do here is give you those questions that I asked. So we're going to go watch them, watch the question, watch the answer, and then Lacey and I will react to them and get your thoughts. So yeah, let's not stand on ceremony, Lacey. Why don't we get after it here with the first one? John from the Resistance broadcast, congratulations.
Hi.
First off.
Thanks. Thank you.
So after tackling the pressure of making movies for a generationally beloved character like Spider-Man, what did you learn from that experience and bring with you to Star Wars? And did it help your confidence in your decision-making making Star Wars?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I probably learned from making Spider-Man movies is like you just have to try to be the biggest fan that you can be, and let that guide the decisions that you make and start to trust your own spidey sense.
Nicely done.
But this was a completely new challenge because Peter Parker is an established character. You know, we've seen movies about Peter Parker. There's so many comics about Peter Parker. For this one, it's just the world that we've been given, and that's like a very wide open place to be operating, and we're creating our own characters within that. So fortunately, having, you know, Dave and John there as sort of like a big safety net underneath you, like makes you feel like you have the freedom to sort of run with your ideas, and they'll let you know if you've veered too far off course.
I had the ending on that. That's my bad. We're live here.
All right, Lacey. So what do you make of their answers to that one?
I do love that there's a comment right now from Michael Moore. He said John hates watching himself, because I looked up at when he said that at you and you were like,
it's weird. Yeah,
it is weird. It's totally weird. No, I loved this question because I'm lucky enough to be a little bit obviously behind the scenes, and you sent me your questions before you did the interview, which I was so excited for you to get to do this because you are the perfect person for it. You come up with the best questions.
Thanks.
I loved this question because he is best known, or the team is best known for Spider-Man, and he's such a beloved character. So to jump from that to Star Wars, you're going from like legacy to legacy, and that's a lot of pressure. So they had to have learned something, and it was interesting to hear what their thoughts were. And also, I really loved the little laugh he does at the beginning. Like he acknowledges like how good your question is with the little chuckle, being like, "Ah, yes, Spider-Man." But yeah, I loved this. I thought it is important to just have confidence in yourself. And my favorite piece of his answer was the Dave and John, like, they'll make sure I don't veer too far off course.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because they were really thrust into that whole Spider-Man thing. They were, just having really done smaller stuff, and they got a big shot and they took it and hit a home run. And then you have these juggernaut movies. Like the last Spider-Man movie was just this massive beast with Toby returning and Andrew returning. And, that's a lot of pressure too, to try to land that plane. So that's where I got that question from, because I know we've heard reports about people stay away from Star Wars because of the fandom and the pressure of living up to this precious canon and stuff. And to me, I got the answer I was looking for, because it seemed like they really embraced the challenge the same way they did with Spider-Man. But like he was saying, almost what made it a little easier for this is there is no precedent with these characters.
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting to create them and introduce them to us, and we don't have to compare it to the last Neil or the last, Jod Nanawood. We are meeting this character for the first time. So I love that answer. And just to give people a quick view on what it's like attending these things, once they make sure your video and audio is good, they're like, all right, you're going to be in the waiting room and they'll let you in when they're ready to go. And when you go in, it's go time. It's not like, all right, I'm in and stuff. It's like, boom, you're in. You see those people on the screen and you just like wave, hi, how are you, stuff. And then it's blank. You're up for the first question. Then it's like, oh man, okay. And then not only do you have to make sure you don't deliver your question like a moron, you have to be intently at the other questions, but also the answers to make sure you're not redundant in what you're asking. So I was definitely, I wouldn't say I was like nervous, but I was more concerned with making the most out of the opportunity and making sure that we were represented well. And I didn't ask anything that would have been a waste of our opportunity or our chance. So hopefully people liked what I was able to come up with, and I think they gave some good answers. But
I think they did. And I completely understand, because I've done a couple of these that like you just want to make sure that you are not re-asking something in a different way so that the person's like, I just said this. So because you come to it prepared with multiple questions, like at least 3 to 5 questions.
Yep.
And you might get 1, you might get 2, you might get 3 questions, hopefully. But you're just trying to make sure that you're not repeating yourself or making them repeat themselves, or, you know, not reading the room, so to speak. Because there are times that I've wanted to ask one question in one of these interviews and it just, the vibe wasn't right. And I'd be like, okay, let me go with a serious question.
I always try to come up with questions as though I'm interviewing Harrison Ford, and I don't want to disappoint him with a stupid question.
That's a good way to operate.
That's basically my basis on how I write these questions. I'm like,
as long as you, I don't care, from Harrison Ford.
Yeah. As long as, yeah, if I write a question and I don't think Harrison Ford would scoff and be like, I don't care, then I go with it. Like, he's my barometer.
That is a great barometer. That's actually perfect.
All right, so the next one I ask a little bit about everyone's favorite Jude Law. Skeleton Crew being a callback to those 80s coming-of-age films, Amblin, Jude Law being no stranger to Spielberg, having worked with him in AI,
Gigolo
playing
Joe.
a whimsical character there. Did you borrow from any classic characters over time in shaping Jod for Skeleton Crew, or was he a complete organic thing from your imaginations?
The funniest, the weirdest connection that we've put together in doing these interviews over the past 2 days is like, you know, we would think a lot about, in the way that George would be inspired by, you know, samurai movies or World War II movies for the original trilogy. Like, we went back to a bunch of old like pirate movies and pirate serials, and
from like the 30s.
From the 30s, like the Seahawk and
Captain
Blood, and Errol Flynn was in a lot of them, and Jude played Errol Flynn in The Aviator. So it's like Jude was already a space pirate in Star Wars, and we just had to get him out of retirement. That's what it felt like.
But we also really wanted the character to feel like richly, like he's from so many stories. Like,
yeah, like he's lived a lot of lives.
Because the kids are like brand new and naive, and we wanted him to feel like maybe someone who hasn't seen a bunch of Star Wars things would think that he was a character from the comics or something, that he's a reference. And we wanted him to feel like he had all these past experiences, and so he has like different aliases, and he's been around the galaxy so many times.
Yeah, like one of his names, Crimson Jack, is from a Star Wars comic.
Yeah, and you know, he's just like, I don't know, because you were saying that when you watched those special editions, you were also watching Gattaca for the first time and getting introduced to Jude Law. So it was kind of like he just felt like had already been in Star Wars. Yeah,
something in like our brains had already created this character, and he was already played by Jude Law. We just had to get him to say yes. Fan. I don't know.
I think he was. I don't know. Waiting for the right role for him to be able to finally do it.
All right, that's awesome. That was a really, really good answer. Once again, I loved how they laughed at your question, just because they automatically knew you're giving a good answer. Like, you know what I mean? If they're entertained and they're having a good time, then you're going to get a good answer. And I think I've seen a lot of screenshots and clips of them from articles and on social. And I feel like the clips that people have used of the both of them smiling has been from your answers.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
I think so, because they seem genuinely excited to answer your questions. But What was your thought process behind this question?
Well, I know how the kids have been like such a focus, and it's like you almost got to remind yourself like Jude Law is about to be in Star Wars, and I've always been a fan of his, and I think where I came up with it was, the whole 80s throwback thing, and there's always a mysterious adult character in these like kid adventures, and the fact that it's all Spielberg based, and Jude Law played this really weird, mysterious, whimsical character in AI. So I was just curious, like, there's so much you could borrow from in Star Wars, and people, I think, a little too much do the whole Han Solo archetype, which is the rebellious, out for himself, roughneck guy. So I wanted to hear what they thought of to bring this character to the table, because I was hoping to hear something like fresh and organic, and I got it. They're talking about 1930s pirate serials. I'm like, these guys did their homework and beyond, and they're clearly really into it. And that was more what I was looking for, is to see like them get nerdy on their development of that character, because Jude Law, he looks like Jude Law, he's not wearing prosthetics or anything. So we see Jude Law on screen the same way we sort of see Woody Harrelson on screen in Solo. And I remember watching the interviews leading up to Solo, and Woody Harrelson saying like, well, he's like a mentor, but you don't want to trust this guy. You wouldn't want to. And I'm like, ooh, all right. So that's interesting. So I wanted to hear what we were going to see out of Jude Law, because he looks like Jude Law. So that's where I was going from for that. And they blew me away with their answer. I was like, oh my, Errol Flynn. I did not expect that. And there we are.
Yeah, watching it back now, something stood out to me, which is he says, what we've been talking about for the past 2 days, which makes me think they shot those roundtables that Disney and Lucasfilm released this week before they did this roundtable with you. Because he said, what we've been saying for the past 2 days. And I'm like, well, you're just in this interview. What do you mean past 2 days? And then they released those bigger roundtables.
Yep.
But yeah, I just loved how they did their homework was great, and that it just reminds fans that these people aren't just jumping into Star Wars and being like, let's do this. Like, they're doing research. They're really looking into the stories. They want to do it justice. They're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the part about him talking about how he has all these experiences, and that he seems like someone that would be connected to other things in Star Wars, which has me be like, magnifying glass, like what else are they talking about? Because they did try to find connections in canon with Dave's help, I'm sure. So I can't wait to see what that story is, because there's going to be a couple.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I was able to ask the kids one question, because they each gave an answer, which took up a bunch of the time. And I was late, like one of the last questions to go. So by the time they looped around, I didn't get to go a second one. So one shot, one question, and here we go. Congratulations to the four of you. The show is fantastic. I have kids. They're going to absolutely love it. So thank you for telling a story from the point of view of children. My question, so George Lucas always said he made Star Wars for kids, 12-year-olds, the age you were when you made this. And he said one of the most important things to focus on is friendship. So I wanted to ask each of you, without giving away spoilers, of course, don't want to get you guys in trouble or anything like that, what would you say makes your character a good friend?
I think he's loyal. I think he is kind, and I think he's just there for you when you're at your lowest point, which I really dig about Neil.
To me, Wim may seem, or not to me, but Wim may seem sometimes like he's taking a lot of risks and putting his friends in jeopardy sometimes, but really, it's really just a cry for attention. I feel like his dad isn't around much, and he doesn't have a mom, so he's going through a lot, and it's so, thanks man, and it's so intense, and the circumstances are it's really high stakes, and but I do think what I love about Wim is that he really genuinely wants he cares about his friends and family and the people he loves, and he really, really just wants everybody safe and everybody to have a good time, and you know, safety is his main priority for the people he loves.
Yeah, I think Fern has some real leadership instincts, and she's like a natural fighter. And you know, instinctually, I guess she like kind of takes like this position of being the leader of this group, and taking the initiative. Yeah, that's Fern.
Fair enough.
I think what makes my character a good friend is that, you know, she's very resourceful and thoughtful, and I feel like you can kind of rely on her in like times of danger. Like, you know, she'll figure it out and get it done, which I love about her. And she also tries her best to be a good friend to everyone.
The girls do get it done.
And that
The
kid,
girls do get it done. I had to leave that in the video because it just made me laugh so hard. The girls get it done.
yeah, so Robert was like even the other questions that others asked, like he was like cracking me up so much because he's like, he loves making people laugh and being goofy, and he doesn't know his like awkwardness, like, and what I mean by that is that pureness of these kids. Like, it's so real, it's so there. They're not trying to act like adults, they're being kids. And I like, that was my favorite part of it, and this was my favorite question and answer from me. I mean, because all those quotes about, like, because people take Star Wars so seriously, and I'll never forget that quote of George Lucas saying, you know, these kids watched Star Wars and then they grew up, and then when the prequels came out, they didn't like them because they weren't kids anymore. And that always stuck with me, and that had to have stuck with George Lucas. So I had to ask them something about the original reason this even exists, just to like connect them to page one of when George Lucas invented this, and see from a child's eyes how they view their characters as friends, because George Lucas, as recently as the last celebration he attended, said friendship is one of the 4 core things you need to pay attention to as a 10 to 12-year-old entering this world. So this one meant, I mean, it was awesome being able to talk to John and Chris, but being able to ask this to these kids and get these answers out of them, all 4 different answers about all 4 different characters, was my favorite moment from my perspective on this interview. They did such a wonderful job, and I'm rooting for them so much more than I was, which was already 10 out of 10, you know?
Yeah, they're so cute, and I'm sure they don't want to hear that because at that age you're like, I'm an adult. But they're just so genuine, and it's so heartwarming to see kids being kids. I think nowadays kids are forced to grow up so quickly that they don't get to have those kind of immature learning moments, and I think these kids are still doing that, which is great. I know when you sent me this question, or your couple questions, this was kind of the top of the list, and I said out loud, "Oh my God, what a good question." I said it like immediately because it's just such a good kind of thoughtful moment, but isn't overcomplicated for a kid to understand. Like, what makes you a good friend? Like, that's something you're taught from so early on in life, of like, be a good friend, be a good person, be kind. Yeah, I really love this, and they all gave great answers, which shows that they really know their characters.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, and it's cool to see them interact
Exactly.
outside of the show too, because we've seen kind of like tense moments in trailers and any of the clips they release. Like, obviously these kids are lost in space, so it's not the exact, you know, heartwarming, haha, fun moments, but this interview definitely was. And thank you for doing this for us, John, because it was over a weekend, so it was in a weird time. My kids were sick. It was like
It was a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
my family left the house so that I could have the quiet.
But honestly, you killed it. You did an amazing job, and you should be very proud.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you very much. My favorite little part of that with their exchanges was when Ravi said, you know, Wim doesn't have a mom, and Robert puts his hand on his shoulder and he goes, "Thanks, man."
Thanks, man.
Oh, these kids are the best. I hope this show I hope this does wonders for them, and
Mhm.
I have a feeling that they are going to be very good in this show.
Nice.
All right, so that is it for Resistance Report. We have the state of Star Wars that we're going to get into right now.
Is this a discussion?
I would like to think so. I mean, we could
Okay.
change it up. you
No,
know,
it's all good.
but-
Yeah.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
All right. I think this is a fan favorite segment that we do because I think this always gets a lot of views, and we only do it 4 times a year, and we ran out of time. Like, we have Galactic Goonies. We only have 1 TRB left for 2024, and then we go right into Galactic Goonies. So this was the
We
time to do
do.
the fall edition. And every season we just like to take a look at the state of Star Wars and how we feel, basically just like taking the temperature of the franchise from our angle and how we feel about how Star Wars is doing, especially as we're heading into Skeleton Crew. I'm feeling pretty good right now, and I know there's been a couple of State of Star Wars over the past year where we weren't feeling that good. And I think, Lacey, just like, I'll throw it to you. The 2 things that had me feeling good are, 1, these kids and Skeleton Crew, and I think John Watts and Chris Ford have their finger on the pulse. I think they get it, and when you hear those answers, and they really dug into what inspired George Lucas, that's a big deal. They're talking about stories written 100 years ago, and then the other side of what's actually making me feel good, which I've noticed online has been making people not feel good, is everything going on with these movies. And the reason I feel good about it is they are taking their time to make sure they get it right. And that report came out, oh, they pulled the 2026 movie from December. I was like, I forgot that was even on the calendar, and I am completely okay that
I
is
didn't
not on
forget.
the calendar.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I forgot is because Mando and Grogu, and I know there was one set for 2027. But I was thinking about the sequel trilogy and how each of those movies were 2 years apart, which was the first time for Star Wars, which used to be 3 years apart. And I think that extra year is a big deal, especially if you're going to try to hit home runs with these movies. And I felt like those 3 movies were so compactly produced that there wasn't a lot of breathing room. And you hear about Rise of Skywalker going right up until the end in terms of final edits and stuff. If that movie was coming out in December 2026, it's already just 2 years from right now, and there were nowhere in sight in terms of filming or anything like that. So to me, that was expected. And the reason why I feel positive about it is I feel like they are bringing it back to basics, maybe, and like, let's not overthink what Star Wars should be, and let's get back to the core of this stuff. I feel like Skeleton Crew is going to be a show that even purists can like. I mean, they're bringing back Phil Tippett, for Pete's sake, to make these creatures for this show. Like, what more could you ask for? And it just, I feel like it's going to have that feel. And with Daisy coming back, you can't mess that up. If you're going to do episode 10, you can't screw that up. You got to make sure you get it right. So I am totally cool with them saying, nope, let's pull it back. Not good enough. That writer, not good enough. That writer, not good enough. We got to be better. This has to be great. So I'm totally okay with that. So I know people have been feeling a little bummed about it, but I know that if they take time and really put care into it, that we're going to get a better result. So I don't know how you feel about that, but overall, with the state of Star Wars, looking towards the future, to the horizon, I'm feeling pretty positive. More than I have in a long time, actually.
Yeah, I guess if we're doing like letter grades, I'm probably like a B. I'm doing okay. There's things that I'm super pumped for, which is Skeleton Crew, Visions, which just got announced. Andor, I thought it was fine the first season. Not that, before everybody attacks me about it, I think it's a great show. I think the acting's amazing. The writing's really well done. It's just not my cup of tea. Like, I don't really like those gritty, dark kind of shows. That's just not what I'm about. I'm more on like the Mandalorian side of things. But I'm excited for it. I'm excited to watch it. So I would say like I'm a B. I'm interested to see what happens. And the reason I have to give it a B. Oh, and Celebration 2 is mixed in there. Like, I'm super hyped for Celebration next year. The reason I'm a B is because of the movie stuff. I think The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be great. I think it's solid. I'm not even worried about that. They're good to go. The Rey stuff is what gets me nervous because that's the one thing for years I've been saying they needed. Like, you know that, John. I've been going on and on for years. Like, Rey's story's not been told. They need to do Rey again. Rey needs her own movie. Rey. Like, for years I've been saying on TRB that we needed a Rey movie, being told that no, we don't, not yet. And then they announce her and everyone's like, oh my God, they're actually doing this. I do agree with you, John. You make some great points that they're taking their time with it. I think that's the smart thing to do. I don't think it should be rushed. But it does make me nervous that there have been so many changes. As we talked about earlier in the show, I'm definitely a planner. I'm someone that overthinks things and thinks into the details. So there's just a lot of signs that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really messy. We were just talking about the article last week about Rey being the most valuable asset to Lucasfilm, and they have so many people vying to use her in films. And it just seems a little bit messy. So I hope what you say is true, that they're taking like, I think like a sand sifter and they're sifting through what they're working on and getting to like the good part of what they want to use.
Mhm.
But I can't give it an A because I'm not fully confident that we're going to see all the things that we want transpire. But I give it a B because I think it's solid and I think I'm feeling good about it. It's positive. I think Skeleton Crew is going to be amazing from all the trailers and interviews. But I am nervous that it seems like they're not doing that much promo for it. Like, it's the promo is just a little kind of reserved, don't you think? Like, they haven't been doing that much stuff for it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have cable. I don't know if they're advertising during children's
Yeah.
programming on Saturdays or on YouTube. You know, kids are all over YouTube. Like, if I was Lucasfilm marketing, I'd be like, let me get as many ads as possible on YouTube Kids and like YouTube, because I feel like that's where kids are all the time. If they're not like watching TV and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think they were doing any sort of premiere event for Skeleton Crew or anything like that. And I don't know, maybe they're just not going to push the TV shows and put budget into the TV shows from a marketing standpoint. And I mean, maybe that's okay.
I guess it's just weird because I'm seeing it compared to previous television stuff like The Acolyte. It felt like they put a lot of money into promoting The Acolyte.
Well,
and then I'm not seeing the same as
this could be a result of that.
I
This
agree.
could be,
Yeah.
you know, we're not going to do premieres for the TV shows because we did this big, you know, premiere event for The Acolyte, and what did that get us? Like, so, well, I mean, we've been saying for a while. I think the one thing I think that Star Wars and Disney on behalf of Star Wars can certainly do, and we've talked about this, is get more modern with your marketing. Like, and I think the thing that really shattered the glass for me was Indiana Jones and how they literally hid Harrison Ford in a shadow on both posters, and they didn't really do a lot of any creative level marketing. I think they just said, "Oh, it's Indiana Jones. All we have to do is say Harrison Ford's back as Indiana Jones, and people will go see it." And it was not the case. So I don't know that I'm not saying that's arrogance, because if you look at the past of Indiana Jones, you're like, man, those movies did really well. And even the one that people quote unquote didn't like, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, made $800 million or whatever, made a ton of money. So they may have just banked on legacy on that one. I think that is going to be a learning lesson for future Star Wars movies. How they're handling marketing of the TV shows, I'm not sure, because especially with Skeleton Crew, you know, they're aiming it for all ages, for kids. Maybe they are marketing to kids. I don't know. But I think they do have to get a bit more creative with it. Now, you brought up Mandalorian and Grogu, and they put out a new logo for that, and people are there's the footage that was shown, and we still have only seen it on cell phones and stuff. In some strange, weird way, this movie is like flying under the radar. And it's like, I don't think people have fully realized the fact that Jon Favreau is making a Star Wars movie and how big of a deal that is. And it's his baby. He's not stepping in to do episode 8. He created this character with a lot of thought, just like we were talking about with John Watts and Chris Ford. He grew up as a 10-year-old watching Star Wars. He loves Star Wars. He's not Dave Filoni. He doesn't know what blood type Ki-Adi-Mundi has, but he knows how to. But Jon Favreau knows how to tell a really good story, whether it's Elf, whether it's an indie film like Swingers, or a big giant blockbuster that the MCU may not be what it is without him in Iron Man. He does it all. And now has the reins for a Star Wars movie. And the only thing that ticks me a little bit is people are always like, Dave, 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 Dave. And I'm like, you should be saying Favreau, 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 Favreau. Because Favreau taught Filoni quite a bit too. Filoni's there to help him do a lot of the nooks and cranny connectivity things. But this is through and through Jon Favreau's baby and his story. And he rarely makes a bad movie. Even movies that I don't necessarily love, like The Lion King, the quote unquote live action version, still made like $1 jillion. And it was still really well made. I was just like not that big of a fan of it. I think he's going to absolutely smash this out of the park. And I cannot wait for people to be like, wow, that was a really, really good movie. And my last point on it is, I think what's going to make it so special isn't the ATSTs or the chase scenes. Those are going to be epic and they're going to be fantastic because if you remember, say what you want about the volume, Jon Favreau knows how to make big stuff in the volume. Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian is cinematic. It is the most cinematic episode of any Star Wars television we've seen so far, in my opinion. Skeleton Crew, you're up next. That's looking pretty good too. So, but the main thing for me is Mandalorian and Grogu. And that's why people groan at that title. I'm like, it has to be called that in this one because he's realizing that reaction to season 3 where there was too many characters, too much going on. Grogu was here, Mando was here. There wasn't a lot of that relationship that the first 2 seasons were built around. Lone Wolf and the Cub. I think he's reeling that back in and saying like, you two are the focus again. We lost our vision a little bit with that. We're bringing it back in and we're going to remind people why you fell in love with these two. And I can't wait. I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. And I'm a Favreau, just like JJ. I love Jon Favreau, and I'll be a fan of
Favreau
his
fanboy.
Yeah, and everything you hear about him is that he's like this earnest, great guy, and he believes in people and all that stuff. So I think it's so funny how this movie is oddly flying under the radar, and I hope it stays that way, and I hope people get wowed by it. Because if you go in with oh, okay, it was the TV show and stuff, and then you get hit with a Jon Favreau movie, I think it's gonna serve that movie well. So that's another big reason why I'm feeling good about Star Wars, because we're less than a year and a half away from that thing coming out.
Yeah, I think what's going to make or break that movie, outside of it actually being a good movie, but is the marketing. We keep going back to that, but if we've learned anything over the past few years of what movies do well and don't, like Indiana Jones, it goes back to marketing. Barbie, Wicked is the new one right now. I see something about Wicked everywhere I go. You have something in Target, then there's something at Starbucks, and then there's something like they put marketing for Wicked everywhere. And I'm not even the biggest musical fan, but I'm interested in seeing it because it seems like everybody's seeing that movie. And I think that that's the kind of mentality they have to have about The Mandalorian and Grogu is it has to be a FOMO experience that if you don't go see it in the theater, you're missing out. You're the only one that's not seeing it. And Disney needs to wake up and get into those marketing experiences because they're getting beat by other things. Now, I don't know if is Wicked Disney? I don't think so. I think Wicked is WB, right?
No, Wicked's not Disney.
I think Wicked is WB, which if it is, isn't that also what the company that did Barbie? So it's just like they just have so much stuff with Wicked that I want to see that with the Mandalorian and Grogu. Like I want random people being like, "Oh, I have to go see that on opening night. I have to go see this thing. Have you seen this movie?"
Universal Pictures.
Universal? Yep. So I think I was thinking WB because Universal's also in the theme parks.
Mm-hmm.
So they have Harry Potter in the theme park, which they have a Wicked experience in the theme park right now, and that's what got me a little confused. But yeah, Megan in the comments says Wicked is Universal, but I say this because I am a person that's in marketing on a regular basis, but marketing it matters more than anything right now. There's so much noise out there online. People are constantly being bombarded with ads and messaging and all this other stuff. Like you need to stand out, and Disney's not. They're not standing out, and they're trying to bank on what Bob Iger said when he came back, which was, "Oh, use the IPs that everybody loves. Like just go with that. Everybody knows those." Yeah, but that doesn't work anymore because people are making choices what they go to see in the movie theater. People are choosing what experiences they want to take part in. So you need to convince that person to put their butt in the seat.
Well, it works when you do those IPs if people know that they're happening. Like,
Yes.
weren't there people? I swear to God, I'm not making this up. There were definitely a bunch of people who said almost something as verbatim as, "I didn't even know they were making another Indiana Jones movie." It's like, on what planet should that be a thing that people don't even know that they're doing it? Like, that's crazy to me. So
I mean, there's people that say that about the Star Wars TV shows. Like, isn't there a new Star Wars show out? Like, I had coworkers saying that to me. And I'm like, it's been out for like 2 months.
yeah, and I mean, you gotta use Grogu as much as possible when that's coming
Yes.
around. Like, you
Yeah.
gotta get him doing
And
viral social
Pedro.
stuff. Yeah, Pedro has to be there.
He's
Yeah, I
marketing
mean,
Fantastic Four more now than he has for any of the Mandalorian stuff. And he's not even doing official events. Like, it's just like on set photos of him and he's doing more marketing.
well, yeah. So what's interesting about that? So Fantastic Four reportedly wraps next week,
Mhm.
and there were reports about additional shoots for The Mandalorian and Grogu happening through December. So he will be available. I wonder if maybe they're going to do a few more things with him and Grogu. And I can't imagine. I feel like this is it for Pedro as
Mhm.
the Mandalorian. So I think this is the end for the Mandalorian. Not Grogu, but I think this is the end for the Mandalorian. I don't necessarily mean that means he's going to die. I don't think that's a page out of Favreau's book usually.
No.
But I think this might be it for him. But you got to get both of them on those late night couches and just like make those viral moments. You know, like anybody who says something relatively interesting in a late night show, people will clip the heck out of it and post it online. That's what you need people to do for this. And then they'll be like, "Oh, Mandalorian! I remember when that show came out. Oh, they're doing a movie. Holy cow! I'm gonna take my
And
kids to go
not
see that."
talking about how hot Pedro is for every interview, please. Like, let's tone it down.
Yeah.
Like, look, he's attractive. I get it. But it's like every single interview. It's like, come on. Like, leave the guy alone.
Yeah. So
Matt says Grogu on Hot Ones. That would actually be hilarious.
$7 million puppet with his buffalo sauce all over his face.
Steam coming out of his ears.
The creature department's like, "Oh my God, please."
Please don't do this.
The one, and I've heard, Star Wars Outlaws, people seem to be still having a good time with that. So video games seem to be going all right. For such a volatile industry, Star Wars video games don't seem to be causing too many problems compared to other things. The one thing that is still the unknown is the future of canon animation. We are still
outside
wondering,
of Vision. Yeah, canon. So not Visions. For people
right?
listening.
Yeah, so we are still wondering, who's going to take the mantle now that Filoni has moved up the chain. What era they're going to explore? Like, there's got to be some announcement coming soon because Bad Batch is done. I hope they don't just try to tell more Clone era stories in animation. We've got 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. We got 3 seasons of the Bad Batch. It's like 10 seasons about clones. It's like, all right. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. And there is the uncertainty about the future of Kathleen Kennedy. Her contract, as far as we know, ends in a month, but she is producing the Kinberg movies from all reports. But it's not like I'm so tired of the Kathleen Kennedy thing too. Like it's like people just they're using her at this point in a lazily way as this scapegoat, and it bugs me. And I'm not saying I've loved all of her decisions. Obviously, there've been a lot of problems with the movies. That's documented. You can't argue against that. But we've also gotten a lot of good stuff. Like, depending on who you are, like, you can't say, like, there's people who are like, all right, sequel trilogy is trash. Fire Kathleen Kennedy. I love Rogue One. Solo's okay. Andor's incredible. I like Rebels. It's like, you're naming like 5 things. Like, what other franchise, like, what else out there is giving you 5 things that you really
And
like?
she was involved in all of those.
Yes, she's the president of the company. It's just like this. So I think there's an unfairness. Like, I think it's okay to be like, man, like, Kathleen Kennedy has to do a better job of these film productions, like these people dropping off and the firings and the reshoots stuff. It's like, oh man, but you can't just put this sweeping blanket saying like she destroyed Star Wars for 10 years. It's like, first of all, there would be no Star Wars. I don't think George Lucas had any intention of anyone else taking over. So you have to play with the hand you're dealt. And I think, look, this is what I'll say about.
I think
Kathleen
it's
Kennedy.
fair, though, to say that it wouldn't hurt to change leadership.
I'm not saying that. It's nuanced. I do think it's
okay.
time for a new voice. I do think that. But I do think Kathleen Kennedy's legacy will age well because, like I've been saying about Solo for years, like, I feel like fans don't really remember about the double filming that went through and the firing of directors as more time goes on. Those stories aren't going to be the ones that are told. It's going to be like, hey, remember that movie Solo? And when they do that train heist and when they do the Kessel Run and how fun that was, that's what people are going to remember. Same thing with all this other stuff that had these production problems. So I think, look, like, decades down the line, when people look back at the 2012 to 2020 whatever Star Wars, it's going to age better for her legacy. And I'm not defending the things that went wrong, but I think it's really lazy and effortless to just do it's awful or it's great on both sides. People who say like everything has been amazing, I think they're full of crap too. But then you have people who are like, she ruined Star Wars. Yeah, get rid of her. It's like you like give a little effort when you share your opinion. Like, just to give a little bit of effort. That's all. It's just so tiring, the fire Kathleen Kennedy stuff. Because here I am saying I do think they need a new voice, but it's how you deliver your message in order for it to be a respectable opinion, in my opinion.
No, I agree. She's accomplished so much in her lifetime and in her career that it's hard for anyone to look at everything that she's done and just say she's a failure. Has she made weird choices along the way? Yeah, I think one of the ones that you and I always agree on, John, is we had talked to the composer of Obi-Wan Kenobi about Leia's song. And she said how Kathleen had a very specific comment about how the song can't be childlike. It's got to be this strong, impassioned character. People aren't born strong and impassioned. They learn it over time. And yes, she can be feisty, but I agree with the composer that it probably should have been childlike to begin with. Like, that's the music you're going to remember for a little girl. It's not going to be like, wow, can you believe the sass of that song? Like, it's not something I'd go with. But again, you can't take instances like that and say, oh, she sucks, she's a failure. But I do agree that change is needed. I think it's been long enough that it would be great that if someone came in with a fresh new ideas and that's just, I think in life in general, it's nice to switch it up every once in a while. Like come in with new ideas, do something different, try new things. You're never gonna be better at anything if you stick to the same path. And that's just everything, anything really. Like even if you get a bad haircut, at least you tried the haircut. Maybe it didn't work out, and then you go back to something else. Like everything is the same. Food, anything. Just try something new once in a while. You'll see what good can come from it.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
do think that it's time to bring someone else in. But I'm interested to see when she will make that transition. And I hope that they handle it in a way that it's her making the choice.
And be careful what you wish for too, because a lot of the respectable people who have an ear to the ground, like Matthew Bellany with Puck News in the town,
Oh, Puck News.
and you hear, I mean, that guy knows his stuff. And
He does, but I just love that it's always like something comes, like all this drama on the internet. Every time I click down into the web of stuff, it always goes back to Puck News.
Yeah, because they
I'm
tell
not
the
saying
truth.
that's his fault. I'm just saying it like starts with him and then it escalates.
But like they say, like it's actually like people complain about the, you know, the DEI stuff, or like, oh, Star Wars is woke now, and all indications are that they have to convince Kathleen Kennedy of a lot of this stuff. Like she's actually pushes back on a lot of things like that. So you, like I would say this with the Yankees, it's like I'm always like, oh, they need a new manager. Like Aaron Boone is killing me, and I love the Yankees more than anything, you know.
Mhm.
And that's the same way with Star Wars. Like I love Star Wars so much. I think maybe they need a new voice, but you're not guaranteeing that the next person is going to be better. You don't know.
No.
Who
Yeah, you
knows?
don't.
So you got to be careful what you wish for. They could bring in somebody that is way worse than you are hoping for.
Like a Chapek.
Yeah. But like when I look back at some of this stuff, like I'm like, oh, maybe they shouldn't have done that, or maybe they shouldn't have hired that person for that. Like Deborah Chow, like looking back, maybe she shouldn't have been the person to be the showrunner for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maybe it wasn't up to par, and that falls on her. You know, she was the showrunner. It's her operation.
I wonder if you asked her or anybody in Star Wars, really looking back, if they would change their minds about things. I feel like she might, because by the end there, she was like, "No, we are not doing a season 2." Like she was very
Deborah
adamant.
Chow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that was the strangest decision, because I remember saying when they announced Obi-Wan Kenobi, I was like, they can't mess this one up, because this is the one thing fans were like, we want Ewan back. So I thought out of all the projects, that would have been one where they're like, all right, get Ron Howard or get somebody who we know what they're going to give us. Like I don't think Deborah Chow was ever a showrunner before. Like I find it surprising, and that's why I feel the way I do about the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy thing. It's like, oh, here we go again. It's like, yeah, she made great documentaries that won awards, but documentaries are not feature films. They are two vastly, completely different things, because you are not trying to get a performance out of an actor in a documentary. Your main job is to get that information and edit it and tell your story the way you need to tell it. That's 10 times different than trying to direct somebody to deliver a performance and tell a story of fiction in a fantastical land. So,
and pop culture based, like a big blockbuster. Yeah.
like you could be the most ardent defender of all things Star Wars today, and I love you for it. But if I'm hooking you up to a lie detector test and said the next movie that they're making, which is arguably the most important because it's connected to the through line of George Lucas's saga, what do you think? We're going to hire somebody who has never made one of these before. You'd be like, get out of my office. Are you what? And it's just that's where we are. So that's why I think things have changed. I think the Iger element is here, and he's like, yeah, we are doing sure things, because I have shareholders breathing down my neck about what's going on. And then, even a James Mangold, who's this revered director, does an Indiana Jones movie and it tanked. So it's like you can't.
I don't think his movie's happening anymore, if we were going to be betting on it.
I don't know. You hear that it is. I don't know.
I don't think it is.
But you see what I mean, though? Even when you think you put the right person in place, it might still not work. So you cannot take risks with your big stuff. If you want to give somebody episodes of one of the shows, or even let them take a crack at that like they did with Deborah Chow, okay. Obi-Wan was on the lower budget side. It was made during COVID. They did their best. I still really enjoy it. I love all Star Wars. So when I critique it, it's how I feel about Attack of the Clones, my least favorite Star Wars movie. I still love every time I watch it. That we're a Star Wars podcast. Of course, we're gonna love all this stuff. But when you're doing these movies and you're expected to get around $1 billion for your box office, you cannot take a risk on a director like that. So I think they are realizing that and making smarter choices and not worrying so much about making everybody happy. And that's just the truth of it, because like you always say, Disney is a business first, whether you like it or not, folks.
It always is. And I think people forget that a lot, that there's a bottom line that they report to stockholders, they report to a board, they have to make money, they want to make money. So they're going to make choices that result in that. They're not an A24 who's making, they're a business too, but they're making choices based on what they want to see, or, creative choices to win awards. Like, I think Disney's there to make money. And that's the end of the day. How can we make money, make more money, and turn these things into merchandise to then make more money, put it in the park?
Yeah.
Like, that's what Disney's about. So once you put it in that,
yeah,
vision, it's a little bit different. That being said, yeah, I don't know. That all of this is why I'm like a B. It's like a B plus, but I'm still a B. I'm not perfect. Because I think I'll be more excited when we're leading into a movie. Because right now, nothing is definite until we see a trailer. We have everything set to go. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And we haven't really seen anything.
And that's why I feel positive. I feel like you go through these periods and you learn from things, and then you evolve, and sometimes that evolution is finding your way back to your starting point. And for me, this era's starting point is The Force Awakens. And it's like, they had Michael Arndt and they switched it up, and then they're like, oh God, what do we do here? And they're like, I have a great idea. Let's bring in the greatest Star Wars screenwriter of all time. And they got Lawrence Kasdan, and they made The Force Awakens, and everybody loved it. So I think we're going to get a familiar, at least established, safe, but talented director to helm these movies. And that's why I'm feeling positive about it, because you have Favreau and you have potentially what's ahead with there. I just feel good about the potential of the future.
Yeah, I hear you there. I think I'll feel better once the decision is made. Once we have a set team that they're like,
I'm
this
more of an
is
optimist than you. You're more of a pragmatic. I feel like
I just speak in logic. Like, if it's not adding up to me, I'm not going to be fully involved. Like, I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket, because I've been let down before. I mean, how many projects have we seen come and go? How many things have I been pumped about that haven't happened?
Yep.
But again, like I said before, I'm betting that the Mangold thing isn't happening. I strongly believe Sean Levy is going to do the right movie.
Really?
I really do. I really think he's going to be the one to do it. Like, Deadpool did so well. And they've been saying that he's doing a Star Wars movie. He's working on a Star Wars movie. And then that news was coming around, and he turned down Avengers or whatever. Disney loves him. He's like the golden child to them right now with the whole Deadpool thing. And right after that, the Simon news comes out. And I know that he had picked up his own writer, but that doesn't mean they don't have a writing team. Like, Simon could be heading up the writing, and then his friend could be helping in the writing room. Like, I think Sean Levy's going to be the director, if I was to guess.
Yeah, it would be
and I will be an A if that happens.
Really? Okay.
I love Sean Levy. I think he does an amazing job. I watched Deadpool and Wolverine again. It was so good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that movie too. I had a lot of fun with it. I have to admit, I have to watch more of his stuff that he's directed.
The Stranger Things stuff, like the one episode everybody was talking about was his episode. Like, he just makes good choices. He gets it.
Yeah, and they're doing Stranger Things 5 now. Or comes out next summer. Is it already? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it could be. I don't know why. Sometimes it's just a feeling, and I know there's been past State of Star Wars where I haven't felt that good.
Oh my
But
god, there's been a couple over the years that we've all been like, "What?"
yeah, yeah, and but for some reason I feel like fandom's healing. I don't know if that's fun because Twitter's finally dying. That might be a part of it. Uh, sink that
Maybe.
ship, honestly. Just sink it.
Maybe.
Sink it. We're over on Blue Sky at TRB Podcasts and all the other apps too. We're still on X for due diligence, but man, it's Biff's 1985 over there now.
Yeah, I think part of the social media or state of Star Wars is definitely social media in general. I think people are making smarter choices for themselves and their mental health and interactions online. I've seen it myself with my own activity and engagement with people online. Like I pick and choose what's worth my time, and I think that's the smart thing to do for people. Like,
Mhm.
is it worth the comment, or can you just scroll by? Or maybe you
Right.
don't scroll today. Maybe you scroll tomorrow, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, anything else before we get to
I'm sure there's tons of like books and stuff, but I'm gonna be honest, guys. I'm not really caught up with the books right now,
Oh, no.
and I'm
Yeah.
just I'm managing with the TV and movies. So
Yeah.
we're gonna stick with that right now.
Yeah, I'm not everyone knows me at this point. I do not read the canon books. I try to get the info I can from them. I can't read my Star Wars, guys. It's
Mhm.
it's a it's a very visual thing.
I just don't have time. Like I have so many things going on. It's just
I had the original trilogy book and I read that and it's just like I want to watch my Star Wars, guys. I'll read a Star Wars reference book, but and it's no offense. I'm sure they're wonderful and I hope everyone loves them. I'm not
Mhm.
high horsing. I just
Mhm.
can't get into those. I've tried. I tried to
Mhm.
do Alphabet Squadron. What was that, right?
Yep.
I couldn't get 10 pages into that. And then maybe that's on me, but when I hope, people looking for um, heavy thoughts on some of the new books. I barely have time to eat lunch, let alone have time to, dive into the books. So we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like the future's bright. I feel like Star Wars Celebration Japan is gonna have us leaving, and all of us, not just people who are gonna be there. Like getting some good information on really what the future is, because I think that is everything's been so quiet now, and we keep hearing all these rumors. I feel like there's going to be a big pop at that celebration that's going to really paint the picture for everybody on the future of movies. I think
Mhm.
is ultimately the focus now, where a few years ago, Bob Iger was telling a different story. Now he's like, no, Star Wars belongs in theaters first, and then everything else can branch off of that. And I think that's the way to go. And it looks like that's what they're doing. So onward we go.
Mhm.
So let us know what you think. Of course, hit us up. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of nuance. So let us know your thoughts and your feelings on the state of Star Wars, your thoughts and your feeling about the future, because it is ultimately all about how you feel. And thank you for joining us in this discussion. But we're not done yet. We have one more thing
Mhm.
to do, and we're going to send it to Gilly for our next segment.
All right, guys, time for resistance transmissions. It's back. But now, note, it is done on Blue Sky, per John. He's taking answers on Blue Sky. So if you're not following us over there, you should head over there at TRB Podcasts. We're that on every platform, actually. So if you want to follow us everywhere, that's great. But for those of you that don't know, because it's been a little bit, this is my favorite segment that we do. It's called Resistant Transmissions. And what it is John puts up a crazy, wacky situation on, well, it used to be Twitter. Now it's Blue Sky. And you guys give your answers. And I don't know what the situation is. I don't know what the scenario is. I don't know what you said. And we read them. And sometimes, it's heartwarming. Sometimes it's silly. Sometimes whatever. But it's supposed to be a fun part of the show that we let you guys have a little moment, a little shout out, which I love. So the situation this year, or not this year, this episode, this year, we have more to go. this episode, although maybe not, because we only have one TRB left. This episode is, what would Kylo Ren wish for right before he blew out his birthday candles? All right. First up is at Jetta Rosewater. What up, Jetta? Jetta, way to get your handle. Well done. Jetta said, having Rey take his hand and go off on adventures together. Aww. So, fun fact, I think first or second episode I was ever on TRB, we did our pitches for episode 9. And in my pitch at the end, I had that Rey and Ben flew off on the Falcon together and took off to have adventures. That was the end of my episode 9. But I did it like sneakily. So like it wasn't open obvious to everyone. It was like they thought she was alone, and then the audience thought that he died, but he didn't die. He was with Rey. Anyway, that was just a little fun fact. Jamie G at Roxy Peanuts up. What up, Jamie? I think Jamie's in the chat right now. What up, Jamie? She said, for Hux and his crew to take him seriously. I mean, don't we all wish that someone takes us a little bit more serious? I try to tell it to John all the time. Like, please take me serious. So next up is Mike Moria, Drum Jedi. What up, Mike? He's in the chat as well. He said, to be a big boy in charge. Charge. You're ridiculous, Mike. Next is Neil Shaw. What up, at Neil Shaw? How's it going, Neil? He said, for a scene in episode 10 where Poe says, somehow, Ben returned. The funniest thing about that moment is that it's supposed to be like this very serious, dramatic moment. And the internet has turned it into such a meme that I don't think JJ or Chris Terrio ever assumed it would be that. But now it's every time it's always like, and it's the screenshot of him like sighing.
But you know what?
What?
When Oscar Isaac inevitably returns for this next trilogy, and he shows up on stage at Celebration, and
he better say somehow,
and he delivers the line, the place is going to go bananas.
Yeah, he's gonna go. Somehow I have returned. Yeah.
Star Wars fans will hate something
Eat
until they love it more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hayden Christensen could walk on stage and he will get the biggest pop out of an entire Star Wars celebration, bigger than John Williams, bigger than George Lucas.
This is where the fun begins. When he said that on the Star Wars stage, people
which
it.
is ripped off of Han Solo, by the way. People don't forget. Here's where the fun begins. But it's just like, it's crazy. Like, he was so hated. And now people are like, we must love him as much as possible. And I'm glad that's the case. But it's just that's the beauty of Star Wars fans, is like, you hate something until you absolutely love it.
But nobody else can hate you. Only we can.
Yeah, it's like people who love the holiday special now. It's like, you really don't, but you forgot, and now you love it, and that's okay, I
guess. Yes. All right. Up next is Sean Santarude at Rude Cold. How rude, Sean. Sean said, for his Uncle Luke to have given him a big hug instead of waving a lightsaber in his face while he was sleeping. Oh, I had to put that, for whatever reason, my brain thought this said Uncle Owen instead of Uncle Luke, even though I read Luke. So I'm in my brain, I'm like doing the math where I'm like, hey, how is he with Uncle? No, that makes sense. Yeah, I would, that scene is even more heartbreaking when you watch it back now, like how terrible that is to be woken up to be killed by your own uncle. It's pretty dark.
Pretty rough. Yeah.
Pretty dark. All right. Last but not least is Michelle Manazi at Gypsa66. What up, Michelle? She said, a new Hans free device.
Oh.
Clever. Guys, thank you so much. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on social media at TRB Podcast, but most importantly on Blue Sky, because that's where the situations will be posted. And as always, keep being awesome.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I got to give Frank popped one in here. He missed the Blue Sky post. So let's go with Frank here. Frank said, I missed the post on Blue Sky, but my answer would be Kylo wishes someone would blow that piece of junk out of the sky. And he's absolutely right. I
That
had to get
that delivery is just so out of the sky. I laughed so hard in the movie theater. I laugh every time I watch it. I know it's not supposed to be funny, but it's just so funny to me.
yeah,
So
yeah. But yeah, thank you to everybody for joining the new spot on Resistance Transmissions. Yeah, hop on Blue Sky. I don't think you need invites now. You just log on and create an account and follow us, TRB Podcasts, and let's have some fun. We'll do some.
share some stuff from us. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, that takes us to the end of the show. We want to thank everybody for listening or watching and being a part of TRB. It means a great deal to the two of us. We are plugging away behind the scenes at a lot for the future of the pod. But as we revealed earlier, go to TRB Podcasts because our store is open. The base is open. The store is open. We got our Galactic Goonies merch you can get just in time for Skeleton Crew and, of course, our show, Galactic Goonies. We got shirts, hats, mugs. We got the new TRB logo, nerdy and nice stuff, and a lot more that is not listed that we are awaiting in the future as well. So that and a lot more coming. So we appreciate everyone sticking with us, being with us, or if you're new, welcome. It's great to have you. Tell a friend, and let's keep growing this awesome community together because you allow us to keep doing what we do and allow us to do it the way we want to do it. And you are all always so respectful, even when we share these honest opinions. Like if you look at our TRB Discord server on Patreon, like there are people on all ends of the aisle in terms of how they feel about Star Wars, and everyone respects our community to the point where they are respectful with each other. And that means more to me than almost anything that we do. So thank you all so much. Make sure you subscribe to the show. You know where to find it. Audio apps, Resistance Broadcast, and youtube.com/@TRB Podcasts. And if you like the other stuff out there that us nerds like, check out Nerdy and Nice. It's our other podcast. It's the two of us, same TRB flavor, but we talk about everything outside of Star Wars that we like. And we're getting hyped up on Superman, because that trailer might be coming soon too. Just so weird because that trailer, like the way I feel about that trailer coming out, reminds me of how I felt before the Force Awakens trailer. Like I'm so like excited to like get a look at it, and that we'll talk about it on Nerdy and Nice what that guy said he saw. But yeah, thank you. Special shout out.
What was that?
A little Sean Connery late in the evening here. Our generals and spice runners on Patreon: Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Danny, Mike Ramori, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Dave Hornack, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Colin Cormier, Stephen Garrow, and Sachi, and the spice runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the Fort Worthian. And we hope everyone's doing well out there. We want you to have a wonderful weekend. And yeah, Johnny Hoey on Blue Sky. It's my main spot now. TRB Podcasts, Nerdy and Nice Pod. And Lacey, where can people follow you?
People can find me everywhere at Lacey Gillerin, including Blue Sky, but also on TikTok at It's Lacey Gillerin. And just like I said earlier, please follow us everywhere, share an episode, leave a review, let us know how we're doing. If you have a question you want us to answer, send it to our email, resistancebroadcast@gmail.com. Yeah, let us know what you think of the new website, because a lot of work went into it, and get ready because more is coming. We're very, very excited about it. Yes. And as always, I am going to plug that we do have a coffee, Resistance Brew, over at Weird Brothers. Head over to weirdbrothers.com. Look up the Resistance Brew. It supports our podcast and a small business that also supports veterans.
And yes, I see some people in the comments. We are doing a show next week. We'll be doing it on Thanksgiving Eve. So next Wednesday, which will get you in the habit, because then from there, it's 7 or 8 weeks in a row of Wednesdays because of Galactic Goonies. So we're popping it back to Wednesdays. And yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday at 8:30 East for the final TRB of 2024 as we head into Galactic Goonies. So.
And also after that episode, that live episode, we will be doing a special Patreon video call with our tiers admirals and above. We're going to have like a Friendsgiving Zoom chat together on that Wednesday. So get ready for that.
Yes. I may drink some wine for that one. Should be fun.
I might too.
She's back, folks.
Guys,
back.
I'm back. And also happy birthday to my daughter Daisy, who's turning 3 this weekend.
Happy birthday.
I can't believe it. It's been 3 years since I became a mom. Insane. But yeah, very excited.
All right, that is it. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and we'll see you nerds on Monday for Nerdy and Nice, and all you Star Wars faithful next Wednesday for TRB. But until next time, we'll see you around, kids.